Hi everyone, welcome to ELI, the place where you get your daily dose of inspiration for entrepreneurship. And today we have with us Mr. Hitesh B. Jiravla, the founder of Cubic Tree, which is India's largest litigation data aggregator, analytics, and legal process automation platform. Hi Hitesh, welcome to ELI.
Hey, hi Priya. Thanks for having me here. Pleasure.
I would request you to introduce yourself to our audience, please.
Hi guys, I'm Hitesh Jiravla, founder of Cubic Tree Technology Solutions Private Limited. We are the first legal tech company in India and the largest litigation data aggregator platform where we get records from pan-India courts on a daily basis, 1 million records. Our database size is about 3.5 billion records, which goes into history close to 18 years. And we have a legal automation platform, which is your NPA legal and recovery management platform for the BFSI segment, litigation management platform for non-BFSI customers, and a contract automation platform which cuts across the industry. We are servicing close to 500 plus customers and the leaders in every segment. So right from State Bank of India to Kotak to Bajaj Finserv to L&T to Tata to Shardul Amachan Mangaldas to Cyril Amachan Mangaldas to the big fives. So we cut across the segments, across business verticals. So this has been our journey of a decade plus so far.
Okay, so many of our listeners are not savvy of legal and financial terms, so we will try to make it little simple for them. So very simply tell us what is the problem statement that you are solving.
The problem statement that we are solving is that the legal processes in India are pretty complex in nature, and there are multiple layers within layers. So on a broader level, we can talk about a particular case that you file in a court for, let's say your AC is not working, and you put a complaint to the company saying that, hey, you know what, my AC is not working, kindly service it. There's no response. Then you take one step ahead where you send a legal notice, and then still you don't have a resolution, you go to a court. Typically for a consumer matter, the journey is that you start from a district level court. So district consumer court. You don't get it, you go to state level court. Then you go to national consumer court. Still you don't get a resolution. Then you move to High Court and Supreme Court.
Okay.
And typically what happens is, in this journey, the life of the case is anywhere between 25 to 30 years. Right? Consumer matters is small, but on an average, it goes up to at least 20 years. Right? Now, as an individual, imagine you just have one case. But now look at it from an institution perspective, which has pan-India presence, serving lakhs of customers, serving lakhs of loans every year, right? And the challenges around it. So when you have an institution which operates pan-India, their litigation has spread pan-India. Now it's manually impossible to really check for all these cases that have been filed by them or against them, and to check what are the updates that are happening. So what we've done is we've built a complete data engine, which is kind of an extension to the way Google search happens, where we collate the litigation information, which is completely unstructured, pan-India across these codes. So there are 1 lakh plus sources. We aggregate that and give an institution a way to search through this entire data pan-India and get an update for the cases that they have been filed by them or against them on a daily basis.
Okay.
And then around it is the complete workflow system. So one is the data piece, right? That you get an update for your cases. But then there are a lot of decisions that needs to be taken at an institution level in terms of what action needs to be taken legally and what should be the next plan of action on a particular issue. So that requires a complete workflow because you're spread pan India, you're connected branches to zones, to sort of HO, and then there is an entire structure. So that's where the entire workflow platform kicks in.
Okay. Interesting.
So yeah, so it's a data related platform along with the complete workflow, which is completely runs through their entire complex layers of the law that we have.
Okay, understood. Now, tell us why did you choose this problem statement, and why this is so dear to you to solve this problem?
So the entire trigger was pure curiosity. So with friends over coffee in 2008, early 2008 or mid 2008, we were discussing and they were like, hey, we had a pretty bad day. We couldn't find a case paper for a particular customer. And I'm like, we have Infosys, Wipro, TCS, where we are automating the world and exporting software to the world. How come you guys don't have a software?
Okay.
They said, no, we don't have operator software. For us, it is a diary, which is our Bible. So everything is in our diary.
Okay.
And we are very comfortable when the diary is with us because we know exactly where I have written what information. So when I met them for the first time, one of the seniors actually, we were discussing about how we can automate this. And the senior showed us that, hey, you know what? There are 10 diaries there. I'm like, yes, sir. From 1998 to 2008. I'm like, yes, sir. He's like, within 5 minutes, I can take you through a journey of a case of last 10 years. So basically the way they note is on this date, this case, how that is connected to different cases in the diaries. And they're very comfortable doing that.
Okay.
It took us 2.5 years just to break the mindset of that you can manage this data on a software and it will be with you, and to move that mindset from a diary to a data.
Okay.
Data, right? So that's sort of was very curious to know why there is not a software. And once I understood, it's not the problem of the software or the technology. It's more of a mindset break that we need to make. And that sort of really sort of kicked pretty triggered the entire curiosity. So we did a research, we visited physically 150 corporate legal departments, sat in courts for weeks together, met with lawyers just to understand how this entire ecosystem works. And it's beautiful that how technology is still not touched this domain. We've just scratched the surface, if I may say so. Okay. There's huge opportunity in this domain.
So once you understood the problem and you also understood where the problem needs to be solved, what are the different set of things that you did initially and how did you get started?
So the way we started off Priya, right, was when we met these corporate legal departments, 150 corporate legal departments, when we met them, we also understood how do they work and what do they need and what is it if we build that they would be happy to have it as a software or a technology implementation. Okay. So as a part of that journey of understanding how this domain works, we also understood what are the things that you require. So what we did was level one, each time we met a corporate legal department, we made notes out of it. When we aggregated all these notes, we derived common points out of it or common features. Once we understood the list of common features, the next step we did was create a wireframe of those features and give them a flow. So what we did was we created an entire wireframing and a mock flow, like a UI, just the UI piece. Okay. We created the entire flow, went back to the customers, saying that, hey, you know what, once after we spoke, we understood, and this is what we intend to develop, right? And then based on that, we took more feedback. And then we had our base MVP wireframe ready. We were like, okay, this is what we want to build, which is commonly needed across these customers. And that's when we stepped into the development. Till then, we had not started any development.
Okay.
We purely focused on understanding what really is the requirement, right? Because what I understood in that journey is the most important part is to understand what the customer is saying is the problem versus what the actual problem is.
Okay.
What is he saying is his problem of today. What you have to understand is how that relates to tomorrow and day after and the day after that. Because when you build your product, it has to run for not only today, but day after and the day after and the day after. Correct. To solve that problem. So it's important to really understand what is he actually looking for versus what is he saying. So that's one of my core learnings during this exercise, to really understand the real issues in terms of what is he saying versus what all he really wants, and where is that gap.
Once you did the concept testing with the wireframes and all, how did you build the technology stack based on the concept, and what kind of resources did you hire to build that?
So once we had developed the basic concept, we also interacted briefly with their IT also, just to understand their entire technology stack. We understood that there are two common technology stacks that are there, right? One was .NET, which is Microsoft. Second was at the backend side, Oracle. So it's a combination of these. So what we built was, we built a front end and the back end to be database agnostic. Okay. Right. So we built a team which could handle front end with a database agnostic tech stack.
Okay. And then once the technology was there, how did you onboard the customers on, or to be honest, I would also like to understand, how did you find the customer in the first place? Because you said people are not savvy, technology savvy.
Yes. So what really worked, Priya, for us was when we had started off with a research with the corporate legal department, which I knew if I build a product will be my potential customers to go back to. So we continuously maintained relationship with them during this journey of first understanding their entire processes. Second, the entire wireframing process. Third, saying that this is the complete workflow. And then while in the development stage, we used to constantly go back and take suggestions from them. So we had a continuous engagement with these customers. And as we developed the first MVP, they were the first ones to actually do some of the POCs. Okay. But let me tell you, though we had this journey, it took us close to 2.5 years to get our first customer. And when I say first customer, I mean a purchase order. Right. So though there were a lot of informal commitments, but a formal first purchase order was after 2.5 years.
So you were saying you got product market fit after 2.5 years.
A product market fit, we got it first initially, right, during the process itself. Okay. But the real revenue that I saw, or a purchase order where it validates that yes, whatever effort you have put in for last 3 years, that is in the right direction. Okay. That happened after 2.5 years. Though customers liked it, they were meeting us constantly, they were giving us feedback. So the way it moved was A, new company, B, 25-year-old guy talking about automation to a legal head who has 25 years of experience versus 25 years of age, and not coming from a legal background, and trying to tell them, hey, you know what, we understand it and we'll automate it. Right. And to crack through a bank to automate their system for a company like us we had a series of meetings, demos. We had to build trust at the end. So it was going from legal head to the legal team feedback to the legal head, then to IT scrutinizing the tech stack, doing some security test, again testing it back, going back to IT head, then the entire proposal comes in, then that is sent to the committee, then the approval, and in all this we are constantly have to support with all the things we could.
Okay. So from the first customer to 500 customers, how did we reach this many numbers of customers? And again, looking from an enterprise point of view, onboarding 500 enterprise customers is a big deal.
So it's like this, right? I think they say it's difficult to the most important or the most difficult step is to get your first customer or first rupee, first revenue, right? Once you get that, you know the cycle. Then it's all about improving the cycle, right? Building the right sort of team, the sales channel, customer support channel, right? To make sure this sort of things continues and improves. So from a one person sales team, we are today a 12-member sales team and another 6-member support team. So in all, right, we are talking about close to 20-member sort of sales and customer team. And if you talk about the inside sales, that's close to about 4 members now.
Okay.
So we built it. So it was a journey. It didn't sort of get built sort of overnight, right? It's a journey of close to 4 years that took us to build this team, which is now working across multiple segments.
Okay. Did you in between pivot your business model in any way?
So I'm not sure if pivot is the right word. So what we did was, we were collecting data, right, to provide updates to the legal team for their own cases pan India, and we were constantly collecting this data. And what we did was we were working very closely with the customer in terms of any new ideas, any new thoughts that we have, or in general we do have sessions with our customers where we tell them ki, hey, this is what we have, let's discuss what all we could do. Okay, right? To understand what more we could do with this, or is there something that you need. So from day one, we are very, very clear that we would focus for technology solutions in the legal domain. And as we are discussing with customers, we realized that there is a need to basically profile a new customer that the bank is onboarding, or a corporate is getting into a long-term business relationship, to do a due diligence from a litigation or a legal perspective. Okay. So it was a derivative of a discussion with the customer where we realized that if the customer is already defaulting and then we are tracking, and if we already have the data, can we actually help or assist the bank to profile or filter those kind of customers at stage while onboarding itself, so that they are not sort of problematic later. And that's how we sort of entered into what we call it as credit and risk zone in the bank. So today, if you look at Cubictree, from customer onboarding to customer monitoring, to when he becomes an NPA, so recovery. So we take care of the complete life cycle of a customer. So right from onboarding till loan retirement or recovery, we are there with the BFSI customers through and through. And it all happened, Priya. A lot was not planned. The focus was that let's automate it. And we just keep taking step by step, working with the customers. And things moved.
Okay. What are some of the metrics that you track to understand how your venture is growing, or if there is a North Star metric that you follow?
It's clearly what is the value per customer that we have and how it is growing year on year. So it's always more about once you onboard a customer, how can you build the long-term relationship where he can come back or he's working with you for all your legal automation needs. So our focus is very clear and we want to stick to that focus clearly, that we are the legal technology experts in India, clearly. So whatever falls in this purview, and if there is anything that touches legal, we would like to have that automation or that service by us, clearly. So once a customer is onboarded, then it is more about a journey of what is next we could do, what is more automation needs we could fulfill, what more do you want? Because by default, a need of one customer is a need across the segment.
Understood.
Because it's just a common sort of domain.
Okay. What are the different challenges that you have faced since you have onboard your first paying customer?
Multiple challenges.
Yeah, tell us about it.
So first is so once you get a customer, very first and foremost thing is to make sure the expectations are very, very clear with the customer, right? What happens is that when you're building a technology, right, and a system for automation, there is a way user functions his daily routine, and he has a vision that this is how I will operate. So this is how the software will help. So while he's telling you that this is what I need to develop, he's visualizing it mentally that this is how it will get developed. Versus when I am writing, so let's say you are telling me the requirement and I am writing, I'm visualizing it in a particular way, right? And that's where the core disconnect happens.
Okay.
So it's very, very important that you clear out your expectations very, very clearly. That's point number one. Obviously, the changes will come. There is no two ways about it. You can't move away from that. But try to get as much close as possible. That's point number one. Point number two, building team. It's a huge exercise. It's a huge exercise. Getting the right talent, they believing in your long-term view of where you want to go. And entrepreneurship is a hardship in a way. It's you do enjoy it, right? It's a very fulfilling journey, if I may say so. You will feel like you're just lucky at so many junctions, right? But it's very turmoil. It's like very dynamic in nature, right? And you need to build a team which can support that dynamism and keep a balance between the delivery versus the dynamism versus the expectation, right? It's very, very important to build a team like that.
Yeah. And
it takes a journey. There's a lot of learning. You'll build teams. Again, you're emotional about it as an entrepreneur because it's so I keep saying this, entrepreneurship, if somebody has to become an entrepreneur, you have to fall in love with the idea. A very, very basic, simple theory. If you fall in love with the idea, you'll do everything to make it successful. It's pretty much similar to falling in love with an actual human being.
Okay.
It's exactly how it should happen with the business idea. Only if you do that, then you'll do everything to make it successful. Otherwise, don't do it.
Absolutely right.
So you're emotional about it. Then you're building a team. You're investing emotionally into the team, right? And your initial members are so important to you. And when they leave, it's a very hard thing to sort of. It takes time. It takes time for you to digest those initial team members who leave for whatever reasons, right? But it's hard. because you're so emotionally invested into it. You have discussed so much. The whole thing is riding, right? A single person can't do it. It's all team who believe into that final vision, because there is no structure here. When you're starting off, you don't have any blocks. Everything is getting built runtime, right? And as you grow, you build structures. Otherwise, the first structure is pure product revenue, product revenue, product revenue, product revenue. That's all that drives the organization. So yeah.
Speaking of entrepreneurship, can you tell us what is the meaning of entrepreneurship to you? How would you define the term entrepreneur?
For me, it is simple. Fall in love with an idea.
Okay. Uh,
If you have not fallen in love, don't do it.
Gotcha.
Don't do it. Be very, very clear. And I think you have to deeply analyze that. You can't build a Me Too because you think that is sexy, or that is there is a boom right now, right? You have to fall in love with that idea. Then you'll find ways, and you'll innovate ways in a way nobody is thinking.
Hmm.
At the core, that is what it is. Around it, obviously, you would love to get your idea into actual production, actual revenue. It's a feeling of creation, which is huge, right? You're thinking something on a whiteboard versus a customer using it in real life, right? Building teams, there is so much of like energy there. Getting those projects out, aligning your vision with investors, with your teammates, with your customers, where everything is aligned. And it's a feeling of blessing. So these are all the parts of it which comes along with this, right? But at the core, if you have to be an entrepreneur, fall in love with the idea or a business that you want to do. If you are not, then don't do it.
Okay. Coming to the next question. As an entrepreneur, you are expected to stay energetic all the time. And there would be instances where you may feel burned out, tired,
Yes.
or restless. And when you lose focus, your business also suffers.
Yes.
How do you manage such situations?
It's very natural. As an entrepreneur, you are just so your brain is just functioning like 25 hours a day. It's, you're constantly thinking, what more could I do, what better I could do, what would get me to the next level, what I can do, etc. And yes, there are points where you feel where you have a burnout. There are points where your projects don't go as planned, and the shit hits the roof, and you're like wondering what happened. Like till yesterday everything was under control, and today there's nothing under control. What's happening? So typically what I do is I have a group of mentors, I have a group of friends, and I have a group of my own colleagues in Cubitree where I discuss openly about these things. Right? When your mind is running constantly, when you're thinking constantly, when that responsibility is on you to make sure everything is running smoothly, right? It can really create a load, and your mind gets blocked. The only way to release all that is to discuss with different set of people with different experiences of people. Why I discuss with team? Because they know the actual ground issues. Why I discuss with friends is because somewhere I feel that I can be that open. Why I discuss with a set of mentors? Because they have the relevant experience where they have grown such companies or managed such companies at growth. So they understand what it feels, what it means when I discuss a certain issue, right? So you need to have that multiple set of this where you can discuss this with an open mind and heart. Otherwise, if you don't have that, you should develop it, because that not only creates trust but also helps you release the pressure and bring in fresh perspective. And the beauty is you get 3 different perspectives. And as an entrepreneur, you don't like to be guided. You would want to at least believe that I've taken my own decision, right? Though there's no new decision. It's always a combination of a lot of things. But when you get three different perspectives, one from your team, which is on the ground, one from a person who has already built something which is large, and one from your friends who have seen you grown, where it's not the question of money, but it's more of the friendship, who have seen them grow from childhood till now. You have three different perspectives. So you can understand and combine that to make fresh decisions.
Okay. Speaking of mentors, can you tell us who are your mentors, and what role do mentors play in entrepreneur's journey?
I have been very, very lucky, very, very blessed to have my investors as my mentors. So one of my mentor is Naresh Alreja, who's an investor since 2012 in our company, who had built a medical robotics company, and Philips had taken over that company in 2008. He's one of my mentor. Second is Mr. K.R. Kamath, who's the ex chairman and managing director of PNB Bank, Punjab National Bank. He's one of my mentors. Mr. Raju Shukla, who's based out of Singapore, who's an ex-banker, Asia Pacific head, and Mr. Rajesh Gupta, who's founder member of SNG Partners law firm, which is among the top 5 law firms in India, and who's also a board member of HDFC Limited.
Okay.
So these are my set of mentors, and where I go back to discuss ideas, discuss my issues, and get their feedback on it and suggestions and what we could do.
Okay. Coming to the final question due to constraint of time, tell us
Sure.
tell us the different lessons that you have learned as an entrepreneur, which we can take away and apply to our ventures and our initiatives.
So I'll just focus on a couple of
Sure.
top level things that I've learned. First is fall in love with the business idea. That is very, very primary, and you need to really ask yourself whether that is true or not. Only if it is true, then you walk the path. Point number 2 is work very closely with your customers, very, very closely. Only they can tell you what is the next set of revenue or next set of products that you build where you'll get more and more revenue, right? Communication is a key with your team members, with your customers, with your investors.
Okay.
Fourth, pick up one product and start the journey and go really aggressive with it. So one of the things that I keep telling with my team also, so I'll just share 2 of that. To me, the definition of idea is identify a problem, define a solution, and execute with aggression. Right? Okay. And second is let your team members make mistakes. And let them know that you're standing there for them. So tell them, make mistakes, but let's discuss why did you think it is a mistake? Because nobody wants to make a mistake consciously, right? It's a decision which went wrong. It's not a mistake, right? So I keep telling my team that make mistakes, but you come back and tell me, why do you think it's a mistake? So the journey is customer told you a problem. You thought this is the solution. You discussed with your team members. You took a decision. Then you try to implement it. And that implementation didn't go as you had planned. So what was the gap, right? And what did we learn? So that next time, you will only improve from here. So these are the things that I've learned, and this is what I discuss with team. And obviously, it's a journey which is it's an everyday learning. Yeah. So enjoy it, learn, discuss freely, and keep loving it.
Okay. On this note, I think we have to close this session, and it was a absolute pleasure to host you here at ELI. Thanks for your time, Hitesh, and our best wishes for Cubictory.
Hey, Priya, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for having me here. It was really a pleasure discussing. All the best, buddy.